Yeah, we're really in probably a crucial point at the moment in Canterbury with some regions really being, because of their soil type and intensity of farming, particularly in those regions, they're really going to come under some serious pressure. But they're also really seem to be locked into quite an intensive high input system, which is quite profitable at the moment. But I think if you look at what Lincoln is doing, which is a pasture-based system, and it's become quite an icon for farmers in Canterbury to look to for advice, that they're actually proving that dropping their stocking rate, and that's actually a similar stocking rate to what we have here now, 3.5 cows to the hectare, whereas most farms in Canterbury, or a lot of farms in Canterbury, are around that 4 mark, that there is an alternative as far as the high stocking rate system that is also profitable, and so you can actually meet your objectives as far as the environment goes and remain profitable. And it's really, I think, a return to the old-fashioned New Zealand pasture-based system where we had more clover in our pastures, we had a lower stocking rate, so when we had a surplus of grass we captured that as silage and we stored that and fed it back to the cows, and a lower stocking rate not only means less cows on the farm during the lactation, there's less cows to winter, there's less replacements to be reared and wintered, so it's a whole catchment effect. And in the end, it's the profit that we want to make, and it's the brand that we want to protect and enhance, whether it's Fonterra or Synlait or what other company it is. That's really the most important thing. So that's my feeling at the moment, that some people are going to have to make some quite serious adjustments. And depending on what region they're in, compared to like Southern, for example, they might have to make some really serious adjustments, whereas I think because of our climate here, it won't be so drastic.
So we're really worried with some of our neighbours are basically building great big barns and putting all the cows inside, and their leaching is still in the high 30s, so they're not fixing the nitrogen leaching problem. And there's some real issues, I think, around animal health and animal husbandry and animal welfare. Often I come past there and lights are on and I'm just thinking cows should have darkness and sleep, and I think that for our brand we should be pure New Zealand as much as we can, and we should get better at that. And I think cows inside in cramped situations is not part of our brand, and they love being outside on the pasture. There's nothing nicer, and so I don't think it's the future.
Even when it's snowing.
The other thing about the barn farms, I think, is they're very hard to do very well. So again, we've got that limit of how many managers can manage them really well is an issue, and yeah, so that's difficult. And then they're harder to change from. So we're very volatile, prices, like we're $8 down to $4.70 and over a year. Their system can't change fast enough. So if they struggle to make money basically at all levels of payouts. So I just don't think we don't want to roll it out. It's not good for New Zealand. It's not our brand. It's not what we're good at.
I think what you'll find will happen, you'll end up with some hybrid sort of system, whether that's by choice or by regulation, and the areas that have the worst environmental risks, and probably put Southland possibly in that category, they'll be pushed into barns, and they're already doing a lot of it anyway down there, whereas up here it might be a sort of standoff area, or the only other alternative will be drop your stocking rate further. So yeah, it'll be whatever you're prepared to do capital wise, because as soon as you go into barns or even to a standoff area, you've got huge capital costs, and then you have to maintain that. You've got to enlarge your effluent storage area, so there's huge amounts of capital that have to go in, not only at the start but to maintain that infrastructure. And I think the Lincoln farm again is it's a bit of a beacon really for farmers for viable options without getting into the capital intensive or infrastructure that these high input systems require, and they're showing they can reduce their footprint and still farm profitably, which is really the most important thing.
And they're farming the way we've always farmed. So Lincoln doesn't even feed barley, which a lot of the farms around here are feeding wheat or barley, and most of them are feeding palm kernel. And Lincoln have made a real decision not to do that, so they are grass and silage. So it's how we farmed, 20, 30 years ago, isn't it?
Well, probably only 10 years ago, actually.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah.
So I think long term, for the average New Zealander, we're going to have to look at going back to those systems, and they rely heavily on learning how to manage grass or knowing how to manage grass, and that's the key to it.
Because when you've got a lower stocking rate, you've got more surpluses to manage. So it's become really easy to manage, the 4 cows a hectare because they eat everything, and then you just feed them some more. Whereas when you bring that down to, say, 3.3 or something like that, you will create surpluses, and you'll have to put them aside and then harvest them and then feed them back, which is how we all farmed, in the 60s and 70s. But so I think one of the things we can do in New Zealand really quickly is reduce stocking rate. But we've got to make the same amount of money. Otherwise, there's going to be a few farmers broke. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose the take-home message is you can't be profitable without being sustainable, and vice versa. You can't be sustainable without being profitable.